Hey, how's it going, Charlie?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Before we get started, I don't know if you remember, but I have bugged you so many times about this happening. At long
Believe me,
last, only took 23 years.
believe me, it felt like an eternity because uh, ownership of that record, which was wasn't ours. Um, so finally, we had a chance to put them out on vinyl, and I saw some people loved them, and I was happy to do it. Just put it together. Uh, so I'm glad that they're out.
You actually had some involvement in that then, did you?
Oh, I did. I did. I did all the designing for it. And bear in mind, we didn't have a big budget to do it. So
Yeah.
I know that's why people were like, oh, there's nothing inside. Well, there's nothing inside because there wasn't a big budget for it. I wanted the vinyl to be colored, but other than that, I wanted them to sound really good.
Obviously, we're here to talk about silver linings. And first off, to me, it's very obvious why it's titled that, because it is a silver lining, isn't it, in the pandemic to put out something like that?
That's exactly where the title comes from. Throughout the years, there was so much going on in the world, and there was so much going on within our country here. And I started to go into a very kind of dark, depressing type of state. And I didn't even realize it until uh, Carla, my girlfriend, said to me, you need to stop watching the news, man. It's doing something to you. It's really, depressing you. And it was. So I stopped it and kind of just got back into being creative with music and art. And I'm thankful that I did that because I look back at it now and it's like if I stayed glued to the television,
Mhm.
damn, I don't know what I would have done.
I mean, obviously, you didn't just wake up and go, "I'm going to do an album," but you really went through just loads of great songs, videos. You did them, such attention to detail. Tell me about that.
So basically, the first batch that I did were uh, the Rush songs, and the reason why the Rush songs I think came out first is because I was really depressed, not only about what was going on in the world and the country, but I was really bummed out about the death of Neil Peart
Mm-hmm.
from Rush, and I knew some of my musician friends were probably going through the same withdrawal that I was in the same type of state that I was in. So I called them up. I called Alex Skolnick from Testament. I called Ra from Suicidal about doing this Rush jam. And they said, absolutely, let's do it. And then we just did it. And that's how it started. And then it just snowballed into that. I called some other friends about doing this, doing that one. And I may have pushed some of them out of their comfort zones, like Mark from Death Angel. I always heard this kind of Bono quality in Mark, and I knew he could do it. And then the other song that Mark did with me was the Mother Love Bone song. And the one thing about that song and that band is Mark and I always bonded from bands, and Mother Love Bone was one that we just loved. And that to me was like one of my favorite pieces that was created.
I was in Anaheim at the Metal Allegiance show when you first did Chloe Dancer, but not Crown of Thorns.
But the reason why we didn't do Crown of Thorns was some things got cut, and that song got cut. Plus, I couldn't find other people that could play that song during that time, so it was hard for me to jump on the drums or guitar, so I couldn't do all of it. But anyway, so that song, and then there was one song by this group, Massive Attack, and back in '95, I think it was, we were on tour, and our record company A&R person always knew that I liked different forms of music and stuff. and she gave me an advance of this new Massive Attack record. And throughout the whole tour, I listened to that record, Mezzanine, and was just transformed into another world. That record to
Yeah.
me, from start to finish, was so amazing. It was just the songs were amazing. It had this vibe, this created this atmosphere, and I always wanted to, cover that song.
Hmm.
And I pushed Carla, I think, out of her comfort zone
Yeah.
too. And at the end of the day, she's pretty happy that I did that.
I noticed towards the end of that, because you put your own flavor on it as well. Obviously, you're faithful. Have you used the same drum beat from "This Is Not an Exit" at the end of it?
Well, I kind of there's something you mentioned earlier about attention to detail. Each
Mm-hmm.
song I wanted to have this authentic side to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that song I sampled Led Zeppelin's "When the Levee Breaks," and I cut up the drums and then put them in my Roland
Okay.
TD-50 brain, and basically made a drum kit out of those sounds, and that's what you hear in that song.
Wow.
Um, so that was it,
Well,
basically.
because I was like, is that, or is it, what's the other track? Looking Down the Barrel of a Gun.
Right. So that one is a different. It's a different sample, but no,
Mm.
I basically took it from the source, which is Led Zeppelin.
I love that you've touched on working with Mark from Death Angel, because he has got such a beautiful voice. Did you have specific people like Mark in mind and go, yeah, he's the guy for this song?
Exactly. It's exactly how I approached everything.
I was blown away by the City of Blinding Lights cover.
So I knew Mark and Frank from the band. Both of them were big U2 fans as well. And I knew that they could both create that vocal style of Edge and Bono. So they handled that part. Frank handled the bass, and I just did all the other instruments. That song in particular was pretty difficult because uh, Edge's sound on that song. There's three different sounds going on
Mm-hmm.
with his guitar. There is of course, the main riff that's completely like the delays are not the same. They're both off. So you have to ping pong those to work, you know, in unison, but yet sound like they're, delayed eighth note
Yeah, yeah.
delays. So that was a bit of a challenge. But then once it happened, it started to come together. And just learning how Edge plays, um, man, he's just got such a style and such a technique that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you play with the backside of the pick. You don't play with the pick, the
Yeah,
pointy part of it. You play with the backside to get that scrape off
yeah.
the strings. Once you do it, you totally hear that Edge sound come out of it. So yeah, there was a lot of attention to detail in that song.
It's not the first time you've covered U2, because I remember Anthrax did a cover of Exit, and that was like Sound of White Noise.
No, no, it was
But later, was
that
it?
was on the "We'll Come for You All."
You've chosen what wouldn't be the typical U2 song.
Well, it was either that song or "Bad." Those were the two that I was kind of juggling, and I felt like "The City of Blinding Lights" was a newer U2 song,
Mm.
and maybe old U2 fans may know it, may not know it, but it always, I don't know, whenever I heard that song, it always made me like happy.
I think what some people would forget is that you used to be label mates. You were both on Island. And I mean, an interesting thing for me is that you both, 1987, Joshua Tree comes out and Among the Living comes out, arguably the two biggest albums in both bands' career. Was there any type of crossover there? I mean, did you meet U2?
I was a U2 fan before we were signed to Island. Uh, and a funny quick story. We were going to mix the record at Compass Point Studios in the Bahamas. The day we got there, U2 were finishing mixing the Joshua Tree. This was
Wow.
like 86 sometime.
Mhm.
And Bono and Edge was still there. And they told us to go down to this bar down the street that most of the artists who would come to do records would always end up at the bar down the street. So we later on that night we went and we were having a drink and something to eat there, and the bartender said, "You two guys were just in here. They were here a couple hours ago." And we were like, "Oh fuck, that would have been cool to see them there." Um, but yeah, it's funny because like the Joshua Tree. Um, is one of my favorite albums of all time. I don't think there's a bad song on that record. And yeah, I never really kind of like put it in terms of Island had that album and then Among the Living. I mean, of course, U2 sold way more records than we did, but it was still a very successful run for that label. It was a very eclectic label too. To have a band like us and U2 and Bob Marley, I mean,
Yeah,
wow, that's definitely
yeah.
different.
Obviously, you're a big fandom of U2 and you've covered two of their tracks. I wondered, was there an Anthrax song you thought U2 could cover?
I think that you two could definitely do a good version of Safe Home, or Catharsis is another one, or one of the songs that we had on the last record was called Breathing Lightning.
Yeah.
And I think Edge could probably put a nice textured delay on that song and do it justice.
There's some other covers that I really love on the album. Transylvania. That's unusual maiden track for you to do.
Yeah, Anthrax did on the Stomp album. We did Remember
Remember
Tomorrow as a
Tomorrow,
B
yes.
side, and we would always play, joke around with like Sanctuary, and then recently, I wanted to do a cover of Revelation, and I ended up doing a little guitar medley, which to me is still one of my favorite Iron Maiden songs. There's something about that song that just makes me kind of emotional when I hear it. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just such a beautiful song. But Transylvania came together. Uh, a Snake from Skid Row. He's on
Mm-hmm.
that one. John is on that record. Frank is on that record. And basically, that song is us being kids again, jamming on an Iron Maiden song. It's exactly what it is. All of us grew up on Iron Maiden. That's the only metal song that's on this.
The other day was the anniversary of the Number of the Beast, and how unlikely was this? That Scott Ian tweets that the first song me and Danny Lilker ever played with Charlie Benante was Invaders.
I, I don't even know why. I think it's like something that they knew it and I knew it. And dude, I don't even know, because the funny thing about that album and that song is like it's not even like one of my favorites off that record. But I knew it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, I don't think there's a bad song on Number of the Beast.
I want to talk a little bit about the Among the Living graphic novel. What's it been like putting that together?
Well, it's been very satisfying to say the least. We started off this thing with an idea and a concept and a list of people that we wanted to
Mm-hmm.
have. And then we started putting all those ingredients together, and the ingredients started to get better and better. And before our eyes, this thing started taking shape, and it was just like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. And from the things I've seen, some of the pages and stuff, it's looking better and better every day. So I'm extremely happy with how it's going, and I think the end product is just going to be like one of the best things that we've ever put out.
Yeah.
And the thing too that people have to understand is like we are all involved in this. First, it was just Scott and I who was just really involved, but now Joey's involved and Frank's involved, and it's become very much a band effort with these other talented writers and artists. So
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be a real special thing.
I think something that I thought was brilliant, and you said it, you put it beautifully when you put it up. You says this is just about the music, enjoy the song. Was whenever you played Packaged Rebellion, what was it like for you to revisit that song and have John Bush singing on it?
So that album to me was a watershed moment. It was something that the songs that came out of that Once I heard John Bush's voice, then I started to flow musically, and things started to come out. And Package Rebellion was one of the songs that I just felt there's something different about this song, you know? And I would love to play that song again because it's one of my favorites off that record.
Mm-hmm.
And I played that and did a video because I knew the anniversary of The Sound of White Noise was coming up, and I wanted to kind of commemorate it by doing that. But also, I had touched base with John again and kind of, I don't know, almost repaired our relationship. And I don't know, it's tough for guys in bands sometimes to maybe go back and repair relationships, but I think it's very important to do that
Yeah.
because we repaired our relationship with Joey, and now musically, you know, and everything else has been so much better. So I didn't understand why I wasn't talking to John that much anymore, but there was a small issue, and that issue grew into a bigger issue, and then it was just like, what the fuck is this? What's the point of this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just squashed it. And then he sang on it, and we had a little fun with it. And it was, you know, for that. It's all about the music. That's the thing that people always have to remember. You got to make it about the music, because if you don't speak the same language, you still speak that universal language of music. It doesn't
Yeah. Yeah.
matter, man. Just like once you hear something, it's just like, why was I mad? Who cares? You know?
How's the well for the forthcoming Anthrax album?
I think so far, I think it's going to be really good.
Yeah.
um, because it's exciting me, and whenever I get excited, it's like it spawns more.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this next record is basically going to be a reflection of the dark times and some of the good times too. But I think it's definitely an angrier record.
Mm-hmm.
But that's only because of the surroundings.
I loved what you've been doing, working with the reissue of first off Skid Euphoria, and then going into the Persistence of Time reissue. Obviously, we've got Attack of the Killer Bees, which comes next. I don't know if you're going to be expanding that, but clearly you must have thoughts about the Sound of White Noise reissue.
Yeah, I already have some stuff that was left over. I just don't know when I'm going to get to that because, as you mentioned, the Killer Bees was there, but I don't really have anything extra for Killer Bees because that was the extras that
Mm-hmm.
ended up on the Killer Bees, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's funny that I was looking at it during the pandemic, and that cover is basically uh, symbolic of the year that we've all had with masks and just, you
Yeah.
know, being like this. But my idea behind that cover was because of the smelliest bunch of guys that I've had to live with in the band on the bus. And you'd be sitting, and then someone would just start fucking tooting the horn, and all of a sudden you just got to cover up your face because the smell is so bad. That's how the concept for that cover came about.
As a collector of Anthrax records and Anthrax vinyl, that's the only one that's never had a reissue other than Volume 8.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying it won't happen, but I don't know if there's going to be any extras. But it may get a vinyl
Yeah.
reissue, you know, a remastered vinyl, because there are some cool things on that. And I mean, at the end of the day, it probably deserves to have it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, maybe get that going too, but I don't know when though.
Going back to your covers album, what I loved about this album is that the covers are very different because Anthrax are no strangers to covers. I think the first cover was I'm 18, which was on Fistful of Metal. Was it difficult to kind of go, these are going to be separate from the Anthrax covers?
No, I mean, like you said, the first one we ever did was I'm 18. And then the one that we really had fun with right after that was the Sabbath Bloody Sabbath one,
Yeah.
where we really wanted to make it our own, put our own little stamp on it, because Black Sabbath were just one of our all-time favorite bands.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just started to grow. But my idea behind Antisocial was I love this band Trust from France. I loved their records so much that I would get them in French and I would get them in English. And I presented Antisocial to the guys, and I think at first they were a bit like, you know, it's in French, but then I played them the English version. And I think everybody kind of heard something in it that we could definitely make it our own.
Yeah.
And to this day, people think it's our song, but it's not. And then I had the idea for the Got the Time, which was a Joe Jackson song, which those first two Joe Jackson albums to me to this day are so amazing. And Got the Time is such a great song. And if you just make it your own, then you're doing it justice, you know? But
Yeah.
with the silver linings, I wanted to pay more attention to the detail of the song and the essence of the song.
What is happening going forward from you now?
We're working on something big for June, maybe July, which is going to commemorate our career. And we're putting that together now. It may be like a live stream type of thing, and it's going to consist of a lot of songs and a lot of songs that we probably never played before, but we want to make something special out of this. And but yeah, be on the lookout for that announcement. We're just putting it together now.